Now is Indiana Governor Mike Pence. Governor, welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
Thank you, John.
Not going to ask you that question, at least not off the top, but the National Governors Association meeting is taking place just down the street here in Washington.
Right.
And I know that the immigration bill that will be debated this week, because there's only a few days to get it done before the Department of Homeland Security runs out of money, is a big topic of conversation. Some of the governors calling for a clean bill, take the immigration stripping provisions out of it. What do you say?
Well, look, the executive action the president took late last year was clearly an unconstitutional end run around the lawmaking authority of the Congress of the United States. The president has the authority under the Constitution to determine how he will implement the law. He does not have the authority to determine whether he will implement the law. And now a federal district judge has ruled to put an injunction in place. You know, my bottom line is that we need to protect the homeland. We also need to protect the Constitution. And I think that the Congress using the power of the purse is altogether appropriate. And what ought to be happening today is not calls for a clean bill or otherwise. The House has acted. Now the Senate, the Democrats in the Senate should lift the filibuster, should allow the bill to come to the floor, let the Congress work its will, and put a bill that funds the Department of Homeland Security on the president's desk before Friday.
You were telling me earlier off camera, why should taxpayers fund something that a Texas judge says is not within the bounds of the president to do?
Well, it's something I mentioned to some of my Democrat governor colleagues yesterday. I said, why does the administration need money for what the federal courts say they can't do? I mean, this is really the injunction that's in place. The White House is going to appeal it, but this is going to be a while. And Indiana was very proud to join the suit that Texas initiated. We were vindicated when the court found that states do have the kind of harm that justifies states having standing in this case. So this is a matter that's going to go to the Supreme Court of the United States. Obviously, this is an important issue in the life of the nation, and it ought to be decided, debated, and resolved in the Congress, and not by the stroke of a president's pen.
Let's move on. A lot to get to in the remaining 8 minutes that we have. What's your take on how the president is handling this whole situation with ISIS from top to bottom?
Well, I'm very concerned. You know, before I became governor of Indiana, I served on the Foreign Affairs Committee for a decade. I actually traveled to Iraq a number of times. I've been to Mosul. And the word this morning about plans for an offensive operation to retake Mosul are encouraging, but I still think.
Is it encouraging that those plans are out there, though?
Well, it's encouraging that the goal is out there, John, but I don't think we yet hear a robust strategy to really drive this terrorist army not only out of Iraq but also out of existence. And there ought to be calls for military investments and spending. The debate over the authorization, a little bit of which you had on the show just a few moments ago, is going to be very, very important. But I think this administration is yet to articulate the kind of vision and the kind of strategy that will not only give confidence to the American people, but give confidence to our allies around the world that we're serious about driving this ISIL army out of existence.
You probably heard Secretary Jay Johnson give the rationale for the White House not labeling ISIS as Islamic extremism. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think, look, the American people are understandably frustrated with a president who lectures us on the Crusades, but is unwilling to call Islamic extremism by name. I mean, part of leadership, John, I truly believe, is not only identifying the objective, but in matters of war and statecraft, it's about identifying the enemy. And not just with regard to what's happening in Syria and in Iraq today with ISIL, but around the globe with the Islamic terrorist attacks in Europe. It is clear that we are confronting a growing threat around the world in the rise of Islamic extremism, and I think it's extremely important for the President of the United States to articulate that to marshal the resources, the energy of the United States of America and our allies to confront that.
Your neighbor to the east, Governor John Kasich, told one of our colleagues, quote, "Mark my words, at some point it will require boots on the ground from the world to be able to deal with this problem." He was talking about NATO forces, talking about U.S. forces. Do you agree? Will U.S. ground troops at some point have to be part of this fight?
They might have to be. I mean, the reality is that what we ought to be doing, this commander-in-chief ought to be articulating a robust strategy for not only retaking the territory of Iraq, but also driving this ISIL army out of existence. You know, I'm a little old school on this. I think the civilian command of our military ought to articulate the objective, but then you ought to listen to your commanders. On the ground and at the Pentagon to say, now, how do we do that? How do we accomplish that? And take their recommendations.
I want to ask you about 2016, and I get into this stipulating that your legislative session runs until April the 29th.
It does.
You are focused on the business of the state of Indiana. That said, do you want the job?
You know, John, I'm blessed every day to be governor of a state that works.
I should have included that.
I mean, we have a balanced budget, and we're going to pass another balanced budget this year, as well as a balanced budget amendment. In my first year in office, we passed the largest state tax cut in Indiana history. We have invested in education and infrastructure, and as a result, our economy's grown. We've seen 100,000 private sector jobs in Indiana in the last 2 years. Unemployment has dropped from over 8% to 5.8%. Test scores are up. Graduation rates are up. And I just couldn't be prouder of the progress the people of Indiana have made. And so I'm going to stay focused on the future of the people of Indiana. We'll let my future take care of itself.
Those are all pretty good things to lay out there. I knew my wasn't long enough. Those are all good things to lay out there if you want to become a candidate. But here's the problem. With Jeb Bush pushing the schedule as he is, and now Governor Walker following suit and everybody else running to wrap up donors, waiting until May, is that too long before you would potentially make an announcement? Could you catch up if you waited until May?
Well, you know, I'm just a small-town guy from southern Indiana who had the privilege of serving in the Congress for a dozen years, and now I've had the privilege of serving as governor for 2 years. But I was raised on some old-fashioned values, and you know, one of those ideas is what comes out of the old book that essentially says that whoever's trustworthy in lesser things may be entrusted with greater things. It really tells me in my heart that as we work on passing another budget, a balanced budget amendment, increasing investment in education, innovation, expanding charter schools, and what is the largest educational voucher program in America, that my job, my focus needs to be on the state of Indiana, the people of Indiana, and any decisions about my future after we take care of business at home.
Is there any consideration here of, you know, if we wait until May, it's going to be difficult to catch up?
Well, you know, I like to say I'm an A to B, B to C, C to D guy. So I was raised to say, do what's in front of you, do it well, and then we'll consider whatever opportunities are before us this spring.
People say you could, Governor Pence, be a good bridge between establishment Republicans, Tea Party wing, social conservatives. Can you bridge all of those groups?
Well, that would be for others to say. I've been very fortunate.
Do you feel comfortable among all those groups?
Well, I've been very fortunate to enjoy strong support. I was there at the first major Tea Party rally out on the National Mall just several years ago. And I looked at those hundreds of thousands of people who had come to battle against runaway spending in Washington, D.C., and I said, Nancy, said, you all are AstroTurf. I said, I think you look like the cavalry to me. And I love what the Tea Party has done. I'm proud to be a member of the party of Ronald Reagan, and I'm proud of the business support that we've enjoyed. But,
well, that should serve you in good stead, should you and may decide to do that. I want to ask you one more.
We'll consider all of those things, but we'll make decisions about our future based on where we feel called to serve.
I want to ask you one more question. You know what Rudy Giuliani said the other day, that he believes the president doesn't love America, at least not in the way that Ronald Reagan did and the way that Bill Clinton did. Do you believe this president loves America?
You know, I don't think it helps to question the president's patriotism or motives. But look, Rudy Giuliani is a great American. He saw nearly 3,000 of his own citizens die on 9/11, and he is understandably frustrated. with a president who, as I said before, is fully willing to lecture the people of this country about the Crusades, but is unwilling to call Islamic extremism for what it is. The focus of our country today needs to be on the task at hand, getting this economy moving again, restoring America's strong place in the world. And I look forward to being a voice and to play some role in helping to advance that.
So you say it's not helpful to question his patriotism. Do you question his patriotism at all?
I just don't think it's helpful in the public debate to question motives or to question patriotism. I truly do believe that where we ought to be focused, and the thing about being a governor, John, is you have to focus on the task at hand every day. You know, you've asked me a lot of questions about the future, and I like to say out here in Washington, D.C., they're always asking who's next. But as a governor, I have to ask what's next. And working on jobs, education reform, and improving the quality of the lives of the people of our states. Washington, D.C. needs to get back to focusing on the priorities of the American people.
Governor Pence, it's always great to sit down with you. Good to see you again. Enjoyed our time together in Boca Raton, and good to see you here in Washington. Thanks so much.